Mo, I think you hit the nail on the head as we were transitioning into intro. She said, we're just winging it.
That's right. Every day.
Feels like the story of our life.
My life, my eyeliner, everything.
My eyeliner.
Buckle up. You've just hit the play button on The Notice, a podcast from OTAVA with hosts TJ Houske and Melissa Locke. Expect to laugh, nod vigorously, and maybe even fist pump as we dive deep into the tech that powers your business, leadership that uplifts, and how culture can make your company the kind of place where everyone wants to clock in. So if you're ready for insights that stick and laughs that last, you've got a seat at our table. Welcome to The Notice, where tech gets personal and growth is a group project. Let's get started.
So, Mo, what have you been up to? What you got going on?
Well, we had a fun week. Had some on-site meetings in Ann Arbor. John Reardon, our CEO of Schurz, he came into town and participated in our meetings. And then we had a volunteer event at Food Gatherers, which is it's like a warehouse that gathers food that would otherwise be thrown into the landfill from grocery stores, Costco, Target. And so they rescue that food, and then we had to sort through and toss anything that was bad. So we had the produce section and toss out anything that was bad, rebox it, and then they distribute it the very next day or even that afternoon to food banks that then it gets immediately handed out. So it was really rewarding, and we had 10 employees participate, including John Reardon. And so that was fun just to do it outside of the work activity and get to know folks. It's always fun. A lot of laughing.
That's awesome. And there's a lot of momentum over the last couple of years that we've been intentional about building, and you've been leading that charge. And it's been fun to see. I don't know how many food banks now we've donated or served, committed time to, but it's been awesome to see.
Yeah, there will be a video on LinkedIn. I had the fun time of pretending to be a photographer using my phone and getting folks just to talk about it a little bit. So look for that.
That's awesome. The last time we did it, we were joking. We did one and we packed bread for, a handful of hours, and we smelled like bread for days.
Yes.
So is there any produce that you're going to avoid for the next few days?
I don't know about that, but there was a strange rescue. There was a whole box of horseradish, like in its natural form, which I had never even seen. I thought they were dog bones at first, if I'm honest, because they're cut kind of like they look like rawhide kind of. And so that was just a bizarre rescue item. So we had some food items that we weren't sure what they were, and that was a challenge. That was our challenge of the day. And Tony, our project manager, he knew what all of them were. It was like, hey, Tony, what's this? Oh, that's dragon fruit. That's a turnip.
You're like, always about who you know.
Yeah.
On the straight and narrow. That's awesome. Well, yeah, I think Ann Arbor was fantastic. We run, if you're tuning in, we run an intentional gathering quarterly for our entire company. And that's what we call our headliner. It ties into our rock band theme for culture of service. And we do sound checks in between the quarter breaks. So kind of have a waterfall flow in our structure. Mm-hmm. And our sound checks are monthly touch points to our employees. And we do a lot of really neat things, not just company updates, but also shout outs for employees. Feedback from customers. There's a lot of really great and rewarding things that go in there. And then in our headliner, it gives us an opportunity to really measure against what are we doing tactically? How does that relate to what we're, wanting to do strategically? And then what are those things we should keep our eye on the prize for? And then we also run our Amplify, which is a monthly that we run attached to that. And that gives us an opportunity to develop our leaders where we do leadership training. And we focus in there. Right now, we're actually going through the 21 irrefutable laws of leadership. And that's been great. And Mo, you want to talk a little bit about that? Because you're carrying that over now to all of Schurz. And I think it's right. You and a few other teammates that are teaching that series out. Is that right?
Yeah, so we're doing it a little bit different at OTAVA. We're giving each manager, we're assigning a chapter or a law and letting them explain it in the meeting to their peers, which is fun. It makes you dive in a little bit deeper when it's your chapter, right? And talk to the team about it. And it's good just to hear a different perspective of the chapter and how it applies to them or each law. And then more broadly across SURES, we are doing quarterly trainings to cover the entire book over the year. And so we just did the first 5 laws for that group. And then in Q2, we'll do the next 5 until we wrap it up and cover all 21. So OTAVA leaders get a double dose, which I think hearing it again always is helpful and reinforces, right? So yeah, it's been fun. It's been fun to hear from our leadership team and how they dive in and interpret it and how it applies to their journey as a leader.
Yeah, it's cool. It's a lot of fun. All right. Well, so this episode today, we're going to spend some time, talking about leadership. Obviously, it's one of the passions that we have. It's one of the core themes that we've integrated into the notice and the purpose why we spend time, in creating the podcast for internal and external is just adding value. And so today's topic as it relates to leadership is, what makes a good leader, and how do you develop that muscle? So we'll spend some time talking about that. I hope that folks really get a lot out of it. This is a really, really good topic, and it's one that if folks will really grab a hold of it, can make a pretty big change, not only in your professional life, but more importantly in your personal life and the lives of other people that you come into contact with, which is a lot of people on a daily basis. So right. I highly encourage folks and then to check that out. And then we get to interview and spend some time with one of our newer employees, but she's certainly one of the newest, if not the newest member of our leadership team, our channel chief, Liz Barnhart. And super excited to hear from her and what she's been developing for us, which is a revamping of our channel alliance or our partner alliance program. And that's called CloudPulse. And so really excited. She did a very large webinar that presented what I'll call a REGO, a REGO to market, a word that doesn't even exist.
So is that an Italian word?
I don't even know I know it's not a word. It's almost like a redo, right? Like a redo to market, we'll call it, for lack of coffee today. But definitely a redo in bringing it to market after she refreshed it. And so really excited. A lot of excellent feedback that we've received already from partners as she's gone through this. So excited for everybody to hear from her. So yeah, it's going to be good. It's going to be a great episode.
Well, you want to do some shout outs?
Yeah, let's do some shout outs. Let's see. How about I start with, I'm going to start with Doug Wilson. So DC Ops, I call DC Ops the unsung heroes, and so for data center operations, hence DC Ops, we're really fortunate, even in times during the COVID lockdown with quarantine. That's essential workers roles, and they're always around, manning our facilities, keeping them up and running. Making sure that they're there for walkthroughs for customers that need on-site visits, receiving packages. There's really nothing that they don't do, and they're wonderful. They're always there. We get nothing but incredible feedback from customers about their experience in participating with data center operations, who also is really centrally assigned to running our co-location portion of our business. But when we pull together headliners or all employee gatherings, it's typically data center operations behind the scenes that makes sure that the facility's ready, that it's clean, organized, and ready from a technology perspective, but also the facilities themselves. And so I just want to say thanks and a big shout out, Doug. This last couple of days went really, really well. In fact, I think you could just say flawlessly at Ann Arbor. And I know that went because of your hard work and the hard work of some other folks that pitched in to support you. So thanks. How about you, Mo? Who do you got?
Well, first I gave Doug a tagline. Doug gets it done.
Doug.
Ask Doug. Doug gets it done.
Doug gets it done. We need to get him a T-shirt.
He would wear it too. He has a great personality. He helped volunteer.
He does.
And so yeah, he's really fun to be around. My shout out goes to John Reardon, because as the CEO of SURES Communications, parent company of OTAVA, he comes into town to spend time with our employees and is thoughtful and checks in with each one. But then he goes and gets dirty and helps us volunteer, and he's mopping the floor and he's cutting up with all the volunteers, and just, I don't know. It just felt good to have someone participate from Schurz and from
Yes.
that level of the organization. And he's just in town for a short time, but he took the time to volunteer with us. So I want to give a shout out to John Reardon for just hanging out with us and doing that.
I dig it. That's a great shout out. And you're right. Like, he's got a very full schedule
Yeah.
and he makes the time. He's intentional with that time. And he loves spending time with employees and people. So that was awesome. I did love the pictures that you snagged of him mopping and cleaning. And he was having a good time doing it. So we're super thankful for John. So that's awesome. That's a great shout out.
Okay, so now we want to talk about what makes a great leader. So when we figure that out, we'll let you know.
Right. Right.
It's a process. That's what we know. It takes a while.
Let's ask ChatGPT real quick.
No, we do have a few pointers that have worked. We've worked through over the years. And one of the reference points I like to point to, because it is just basic needs of humans and needs of employees and how managers can impact those needs. There's just a few that, as long as you're hitting those, you're probably off to a good start. And I would say the first one is to get to know your employees and treat them as a human and pay attention to their well-being and let them know you care. Getting to know employees personally and what they care about and what drives them, it just creates a safe work environment. And one example is sometimes you tell a silly story and then you end up with an action figure related to that story. So I had unfortunately mentioned a story about a black eye hit my eye, and so I end up with this Quasimodo action figure. But that's just an example of hearing a story, remembering it, and then you get a fun little action figure to create conversation. But that's what leaders do. That's what friends do. So it's just creating an environment where you can laugh about things, and you remember the stories about folks. Personal. We had a podcast about make it personal, and that really is where you build the trust and let folks know you care, and that makes that kind of it affects your discretionary efforts, right? If I work at a place where the others care about me, I might think differently about my discretionary efforts.
Yep.
In the workplace. It just creates that safe environment.
Yeah. No, I think that's great. You're right. I think, for me, if I put them in an order to help folks and say, like, what makes a great leader? I think the first one is coming to realization that self-awareness matters. Like that it is a huge first step. Is, people always say, like, how do you know if you're growing? Well, you've identified that you need to grow. That's usually the first step, is as soon as you understand that you need personal growth, you're growing.
Mm-hmm.
That's self-awareness, is recognizing what you're great at, what you're good at, what you're not so good at, and really figuring out yourself first before you go try to, figure out somebody else. So I think self-awareness is really the first one that you have to come into grips with. And then in that second step, after you figured that out, I really I love what you said about getting to know your employees, right? Because that's really your first responsibility, is as you're getting to know yourself, and hopefully, you're doing that. And the good news is you can do that at any stage of your career. I think a lot of people, maybe you're listening to this and you're seasoned and you're later in your career journey, and you think, well, it's too late. It's never too late to be a better leader. Everybody deserves to be led well. So it's never too late. But certainly if you've been on this journey for a while and you've been focusing on growing yourself, then you've gotten better at learning how to help other people come to that same realization, help them get self-awareness on what are the things that they need and want out of this. And through that process, I love what you said, Mo, because it directly connects. That's where you start to get to know people, and you start to ask really powerful questions and figure out what makes them tick and what's going on in their life and what do they like to do, hobbies and interests, and what do you know about their family. And and you have to separate that you're getting to know them because you want to get to know them, you want to build those relationships, you want to be a leader, you want to make an impact, versus you quote unquote want to get something out of them, right? Because that goes the other direction, where now all of a sudden what you thought you were trying to do is really coming across more like manipulation than leadership. And so those are the two big ones I see: self-awareness, and then bridging that gap to help somebody else, get self-awareness for themselves and start to organize that. So I think that's a great jumping off point for this segment.
Yeah. I think anytime you can give away the credit.
Yes.
To those who are doing the work, you get credit for maybe hitting the number because you're the leader of the department. But anytime you can give credit away to those on your team, that's a real win. Humans crave recognition, and not just once a year in a performance review or every quarter when you review the team project status. It needs to be regular. I think one of the Gallup questions is, in the last 7 days, have you received recognition? So that means it's regular and consistent. And anytime you can build up your team and get that dopamine going in your team when they do something good, and you're reinforcing all the positive things that they're doing and contributing and tying it back to the meaningful work, that the impact they're making, that's when you really start to get that momentum going in your team and creating a safe and empowered work environment that folks want to do more and want to do better and be productive and are satisfied.
Yep, that's great wisdom. I think, another element that makes a great leader is, your number one job as a leader is to create a safe environment. That is your number one job, is to create a safe, consistently safe environment. And what do I mean by safe? Well, I mean, you could take it at face value. Certainly your responsibility is to always make sure the work environment is safe physically, that employees are, protected from harm. But I'm talking more about emotionally safe, where there's an opportunity for someone to grow and to get comfortable and to find their swag, so to speak, and their swagger in their step, so that they know that they've got an environment that you're going to allow them to ramp right into where you want them to be and where they've told you that they want to be. And that's your number one job. Now, after you create that environment, I think leaders miss this all the time. And that's a big statement, all the time, but I see it a lot, is they struggle with giving every person in the room a voice. And as a leader, when you're managing meetings or calls or events or whatever, there's always an opportunity for you to create a chance for each person to contribute to the conversation. Now, we've talked about this before, having a view, a voice, a vote, or a veto, right? Todd Shears had shared that. We shared that last year in the Notice. It's a wonderful segment. If you haven't checked it out, check it out. But having a voice is incredibly important, and it's also tied directly to intimacy, like just trust, because communication is the most intimate thing that you can do. And the more you get to know people, the more intimate that conversation becomes, because it becomes more personal. So when you create a safe environment, you create the opportunity for people to have a voice, and then your responsibility is to nurture that, and hone that in. I think that's a skill that most leaders really genuinely struggle with, because the natural thinking when you get into a meeting is like, well, I've got 30 minutes, 45 or 60. I've got to get the following things done, and we're just going to plow right through. And, the more that you can give other people an opportunity to contribute, you'll stoke the fire for creativity, collaboration, thought leadership. There's so many things that come out of that, but I do think it's a learned skill, but that's certainly a big one for me. I think great leaders do a fantastic job of giving people an opportunity to have a safe place and a voice.
I would say you do a great job of that.
Thank you.
I know one of the comments you've made to me is, wow, you really, found your voice, you speak up. Well, you create an environment that allows that, and it's safe to have an opposing opinion and to talk things through. And so that's appreciated, and that is really to your leadership and creating that safety, and you welcome it, so
yeah, I appreciate that. Yeah, appreciate that. It's really important. If you're listening and you think, man, I try to do that, that's great, that's good that you're trying. How do you do that? Ask somebody specifically. Start with just the fundamentals of like, hey, Melissa, what do you think about this? What's your perspective? Or Austin, what's your perspective? Like, invite folks to have, especially as you get better at understanding like DISC profile or Myers-Briggs, or whichever ones you want to use to get more comfortable in learning personality types. You have to be intentional sometimes as a leader when some folks naturally are a little bit more quiet and reserved because they won't speak up. And D's on the DISC profile, for example, they tend to be a little bit more dominant, so they can lead a conversation and stay on top of that conversation, and accidentally sometimes intentionally, but accidentally a lot of times plow over people. Well, if you have somebody that's more of an S on a disc profile, that's quieter, softer spoken, um, they tend to also be more of a rule follower. Then they're not going to interrupt a conversation, right? And then you have different dynamics when you start to put executives on a call, senior leaders on a call, managers. You have hierarchical leadership that naturally sneaks in. You get the halo effect, and people are like, "Well, I'm a team lead. I'm not the CEO of the company, so I need to be quiet." And that's quite the opposite, because the closer you are to the customer, the smarter that you are.
Yeah.
The further you get from the customer, I always joke like, we don't know that much, right? So we just look at the numbers. But yeah, I think it's really, really important. What else, Mo? I mean, I know central to leadership, we talk about this. Great leaders create trust, right?
Yeah.
You can trust them. You can trust their character. Why don't you talk a little bit about that? You've seen great, you've seen good, you've seen not so good in your journey.
Right. Well, and I think I've said this so many times on the podcast. I'm going to say it again. So it starts with relationships. It does start with a relationship, because that is how you start to develop that trust, is just by developing those relationships and getting to know folks. And then you can open up the door for things that build trust and bring you aware to things that you might not otherwise be aware of. You have some leaders who say, don't bring me a problem unless you have a solution. No, bring me the problem, whether you know how to fix it or not. Like, right. That requires an environment that requires trust. And so leaders need to buy into the values of the organization, and they need to live those values. They aren't just words on a website or words in a handbook, but they have to align, because that does help. That does break down trust when there is a mismatch into the values, the way we work, our culture, and that breaks down the trust, and employees can see right through that. So being a great leader, don't work for a company where you don't align with the values. There's a reason I've been with Schurz for 27 years. Our values are aligned. The way we treat people is aligned. And if that was a mismatch for me, I can't hide that on my face. Employees would never trust me. I mean, I would be a fake. So I think that's important, in trust and understand the values of the organization, buy into them. Or if you don't, then go to an organization where they do.
Yeah, I think that's spot on. Like, relationships are the root of everything, good or bad, right? So if you want to understand why cultures get toxic, and why is there so much more politicking than progress, and poor relationship management, right? Selfishness, lack of empathy, lack of trust. If you want to watch an environment that thrives, and you start to see, wow, how does it feel like we're getting beyond what we expected from our culture, punching above our weight, right? How is that? Well, because you've created an environment with relationships first, where people want to work with you, for you, and towards that common goal. And I find that there's a lot of people that really struggle with this, because at the root of it, when you look at where we are today, generationally, we're not really good at developing relationships, right? We moved towards social media over the last couple of decades, and now intimate conversations, we think we can jam them into a text message, or we avoid the telephone, and when we jump on Teams, we don't even turn on the video, because we think, oh, I don't want anybody to see me on video, instead of understanding the nonverbal communication benefit of that, and eyeball to eyeball communication, right? So relationship development is a skill, unfortunately, that I think is going the wrong direction. And for folks to understand how to do it. And so if you want to separate yourself from the larger audience of people and becoming a great leader and an influencer, man, if you can just spend your time honing your craft on relationship development, excellent communication skills, and the ability to connect to people, you're gonna punch above your weight for your whole career. Because that's really the difference, So, and I think go ahead.
I was just going to say, I think that also helps you have, if you think about a work environment, you have the whole meeting in the meeting, and not the side meetings after the meeting.
That's right.
So when you create the trust and you're able to communicate and you have a safe environment, you can have the whole meeting in the meeting.
That's right.
And
100%.
that affects the whole work environment when you're able to do that.
100%. Yep. That's great wisdom. Yeah, I think that, probably the last thing for today's segment that I would plant from my perspective for folks to really think about in terms of great leadership is great leaders recognize that there's always somebody greater. There's always somebody that has more experience in not only maybe a subject matter expertise, like, they have a domain knowledge, but also just general life experience. That's the sign of a really great leader, is that they're quick to understand, I don't know it all, but I know how to go get more information, how to get better, how to improve, how to help people. And that's, that comes from, again, relationships, being able to develop relationships with other people, let them speak into your life, eat the meat, spit out the bones, so to speak, and figure out what applies. Great leaders read, and they spend a lot of time doing it. And I don't mean, reading comics or anything like that. Not that that's not fun and you can't have it. What I mean is digging into quality leadership books that stretch you and challenge you beyond just business books or management books, but growth books, things that might feel awkward when you start talking about love languages and communication and those kinds of intimacy and communication. You might think, I'm the CEO of a company, I don't need to know about that. Okay, good luck with that, because the most expensive thing in a business is people. And the highest return that you can make on that investment is investing in people. So if you're not willing to get better as a leader, probably shouldn't be you shouldn't be a CEO. That's not where you should be. It really comes down to spending your time getting to know people. So I highly encourage you, great leaders or readers, dig into the books and really ask those great questions. And you can learn from past, present, and future. There's so many amazing leaders in lifetimes that precede us, those that are now with us, and there's still many to come. So it's pretty cool.
Yeah. We kind of started with that leadership as a process. So that is part of the process. Continuing to learn and read and invest in yourself so you can invest in others.
Right. Yeah. And we talked about that today, just in closing this, right? We chatted this week at our All Hands, our headliner that we were discussing. We're on the law of intuition. We talked about how, what precedes that is the law of process. And there's a few other things that you have to get really good at and be consistent at over time. So that way, by the time you go to flex that intuition muscle, it's been developed. And you can actually trust that intuition more 5, 6, 7 out of 10 times, as opposed to 1 or 2 times out of 10, right? So I think it's incredibly important for folks to understand that it is a process. It's being committed to the process, and then knowing that if you surround yourself with really great people and you focus on emphasizing the relationship, you'd be surprised at how fast you will grow and become the kind of leader that you're probably aspiring to be, and maybe you're just not sure where to start. So,
yeah. Good stuff.
Good stuff. Great segment today. Look forward to doing this one again with some other content. This is good stuff. So, thanks, Mo. Great job.
Thank you. We are here with Liz Barnhart, and she is our channel chief here at OTAVA. She has over 20 years of experience. So, of course, she, like myself, started when she was 5. There were different labor laws back then, right? But no, I just wanted you to give you a chance to tell us a little bit about the channel program that we've just kicked off, the portal. Tell us about it. Tell us about your experience. Introduce yourself. So just tell us what's going on, Liz.
Sounds great. Well, thanks, Melissa. So excited to be here. I've been with OTAVA now since December, and it has been a wild ride, and we're having so much fun. But I did come on board to run our channel here in North America, and hopefully expanding outside of North America soon. I got a great team underneath me, some fantastic folks that have also been in the industry for a very long time, some that have long tenures with OTAVA, others that are new to OTAVA, but certainly have all the industry experience that we were looking for to build out a fantastic team. But I know the audience, certainly isn't completely familiar with the channel. So I thought maybe I kind of tell you in my mind, what the channel is. And I think really when we talk about the channel business, like in a business sense, we're really referring to networks of partners like resellers and MSPs and those trusted advisors who really help extend the reach of our own field sales team here at OTAVA. So it's truly like a collaborative ecosystem where we all work together to deliver OTAVA solutions to the end users. And I think those channel partners are really essential because they help us scale our offerings and make sure that more customers benefit from our secure multi-cloud compliant solutions.
Thank you. Thank you for giving that background. That's very helpful.
Yeah.
So, in your short time here, have you been able to kickstart the channel here at OTAVA?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, right. Very short time, but we've done a lot in that short time. And luckily, I've got a great team to support me as well as the OTAVA leadership. But, kicking off the OTAVA channel really wasn't about just getting the word out, but it's really about building this really strong, supportive relationships with our trusted partners, both those partners that OTAVA has been working with for a number of years, and a lot of the new partners that we're getting out there, and really promoting our brand and our offerings and helping their go-to-market as well.
Yeah, and I know part of that growth includes the new partner program, CloudPulse. So tell us about that.
Yeah. CloudPulse, I'm really excited. It was fun to kind of work through the naming convention of it. And it's really, to me, a way to take our partner engagement to the next level. It's a very thoughtful program, right? Not overly complex. And it's designed for a variety of our partner types. So whether it's reselling our services directly to end users or those who advise our clients on cloud solutions, the goal was really for me to kind of meet the partners where they're at today.
Yeah. So we're launching the CloudPlus portal, right? And so what will the partners, what will they find there? Like, how will this help them?
So CloudPulse Partner Portal, like you said, is launching soon. In fact, it could be here in the next several hours. And by this time the podcast drops, hopefully we'll be well on our way. But really, it's, I would say, your typical partner portal, but we've tried to level it up and really make it a one-stop shop for all your sales resources, training modules, marketing tools. We'll make sure that there's a, very centric marketing central area where you can do co-branding with our great material that our team has put together. And really, it's just about amplifying the OTAVA presence, even socially, and also their personal brand.
Oh, yeah, nice. So as we wrap up here, what are the benefits of partnering with OTAVA? What are the benefits for a partner?
Yeah, I'd say truly when I first think about benefits for a partner, I want to think about the personal support that we're able to provide. And really a way to be that helping hand because you're not in this alone. We're willing to do a lot of that heavy lifting. And it's really important that it's just a very collaborative environment for our partners. The relationships are key, and we want to make sure that we're getting out there in front of our partners and building those relationships so we can really take things to the next level. It's all about, for us right now, in that season of building those relationships to really work through that speed of trust so that our partners trust us to work with some of their clients that they've had for going on, a decade. So it's the trust piece is very important. So I think what you'll see with this program is a very personal touch and a very intentional approach to building those relationships.
Right. Well, you've completed a lot in a short time, built a team, now the portal, done a lot for our partners. So thank you. Thank you for taking time to speak to us today and share a little bit about it with us.
Don't forget, last Thursday, we did unveil the CloudPulse partner program as well as our portal and made some introductions to the team and talked about our products and our go-to-market solutions. Please, if you haven't already, take a look at the link that's in the podcast and check us out.
Okay, so that's a wrap for today. Next podcast, we're going to talk about the trend in recruiting, how it seems to be shifting to skills first hiring, and then even in retention and upskilling current staff. And then we'll talk a little bit about how AI can help with that transition in our organizations. And then follow us, like us, share, be great.
That's right. I think that's great. And I don't want to forget, I want to plug this. You're going to be speaking about this topic in person. So plug that real quick for folks that are local.
Yes.
Where are you talking about this topic?
The Indiana Chamber is having an HR conference. I believe it's May 1st and 2nd. And I am speaking about this on the 2nd in the afternoon. And I'm going to give my best shot at educating the audience on this trend and how to utilize AI to, get through it.
It's going to be awesome.
Yeah.
I can't wait.
Yeah.
All right. Well, to your point, follow, like, share. We are thankful for everybody that takes the time. We have a lot of fun spending time with folks doing this. And Mo, it's that time.
Do a decision.
We're getting better. It's only taken us 2 seasons to figure that out. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in. We hope that you have a great rest of your day.
Bye. Speaking of intuition, it's an area that I'm lacking. I never pick the right Chick-fil-A line.
I get that.
2 lines. And
I know. And it's always the one that you get in that takes twice as long, right?
Yes.
And you're like, listen,
how do
God wants me to have, it's modern day manna. God wants me to have those chicken nuggets.
Yes.
Right.
He blessed the chicken for me.
It's falling from the sky.
He's not giving me the right intuition to pick the right line.